Now on to another topic. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has given a fiery speech hitting back at a male congressman who called her psychotic and dangerous. Have a look at this.
This is not new, and that is the problem. Mr. Yoho was not alone. He was walking shoulder to shoulder with Representative Roger Williams. And that's when we start to see that this issue is not about one incident. It is cultural. That I could not let go. I could not allow my nieces, I could not allow the little girls that I go home to, I could not allow victims of verbal abuse and worse to see that excuse, and to see our Congress accept it as legitimate.
Gemma, this speech has taken off. It's not quite as angry as Julia Gillard. She probably could have stepped up the anger a bit in terms of the theatrics. But look, she has been applauded for it, particularly by the left. What's your reaction to the speech?
I'm going to go out on a limb. Actually, not even going out on a limb. That kind of violence, the violent language, that kind of language, the likes of which she described, it's just not appropriate for anyone. It's not, and it shouldn't be a left or a right issue, and it shouldn't be something that a woman in 2020 who's serving in a parliament should have to wave her hand and say, "Don't call me an effing bitch. Don't speak to me like that." That is just disrespectful. It's unacceptable in corporate life. You know, last year, Sherry, when I wrote a column about the school strike for climate change, which I like to call the glorified day off, you know, Green Senator Jordan Steele-John told me to shut the FUCK up for daring to have an opinion. He later apologised, but this is what we see, and it's not about whether I'm a woman or not, but it is about the level of discourse that we tolerate. And in this case, I do, for the record, think that AOC is dangerous because she's economically illiterate and she's a green ideologue who brings nothing to the table. But in this case, she's absolutely right. There is no place for that kind of language. And if other people, men and women, stood by and watched that kind of language and that kind of verbal abuse take place in Parliament, then they're just as culpable.
I think there's a huge hypocrisy in the media and in society and in politics when it comes to this sort of language, because the left call it out when people from the right use that language, but there is... And look, I've written stories on this, but there is nothing when people from the left use that sort of language. Other figures on the left are absolutely silent about it. And we highlighted that with the case of Mike Carlton getting an Australia Day award. Yeah. But back to AOC, Aaron, she is deliberately controversial. You know, this seems to be working for her, though. Do you think she's going to rise even further than she has already?
Yeah, I think she will, Sherry. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of the stars of the Democratic Party, in a party which has been down on its luck in recent years, and she's just got this great charisma. She's smart, she's social media savvy, she can cut through, she can combine, she can talk in a normal way, but she's also got this sort of high-end intellectual New York interpretation of politics and society, which makes her so effective. Now, she's only 30.
Are you kidding? She's not smart. She's cunning as an outhouse rat, but she's not smart. The Green New Deal is nothing intelligent about that.
After what you said before, Gemma, I'd be loath to speak over the top of you. But look, I think she's both. And look, she's only 30. She can't even legally run for president. She's on the far left of the Democrats. And so it'd be really interesting to see how she reacts when presumably or possibly we get a Joe Biden White House, you know, which is going to be centrists.
Presumably, we're going to have a Joe Biden White House. Is that what you just slipped in there? You think he's...
Yeah, I thought we'd all agreed on that, Shari. I thought that was consensus here.
No,
but,
not
maybe,
consensus
maybe
here.
Who do you think? How do you think the election campaign is going, Gemma? I mean, law and order seems to be emerging as a big issue now in United States politics, and it's coming down very firm on political lines. You know, we have the Democrat states which are actually encouraging protests and in some cases turning a blind eye to breaking the law. And actually we have another grab of AOC explaining away the uptick in crime in New York by saying families have a right even to resort to petty theft. If we have that, let's play it now.
Maybe this has to do with the fact that people aren't paying their rent and are scared to pay their rent. And so they go out and they need to feed their child and they don't have money. So you maybe they're put in a position where they feel like they either need to shoplift some bread or go hungry that night.
Gemma, won't putting law and order as a central campaign issue work in Trump's favour?
Well, I think it would, but I think it's more broad than that. And we know from the previous election there was the phenomenon of the so-called shy Trump voter who felt intimidated to speak honestly about their voting intentions. And I think that phenomenon, if anything, is only going to be exacerbated this time around. I mean, what person, and this isn't about whether a person likes President Trump or not, that's irrelevant. It's when you look at the fact that half of America is burning and they're mostly in Democrat states, and you've got a presidential candidate who can't remember what day it is and what his name is. I refer always to a brilliant book written by Washington Examiner reporter Selena Zito and another chap by the name of Brad Todd. It's called The Great Revolt, and it details in great methodical process the switch of traditional Democrats, heart rusted on Democrats, to the Republican Party over a period of time, which was manifest in the 2016 election. That book, and I highly recommend anyone with even a passing interest in US politics to read it, it is a blow-by-blow account of why Trump won, and if any of those factors are still in play this time around, and I suspect they are, then he will win again. And as I said, it's not about whether I like him, you like him, or Aaron likes him. It's about what's taking place in the US right now.
But I guess the other problem is that the US is doing extremely poorly in terms of its handling of the coronavirus outbreak, like the UK and other places. And a lot of people blame Trump, not their local governor, for that. Aaron, so you'd think that, if there was a very credible candidate running for the Democrats, they would get in easily. But I just disagree with you that Joe Biden is that.
Well, look, the last I saw, Shari, is the Economist, their aggregation of polls gave Donald Trump a 10% chance of winning. He's overseen one of the greatest human disasters in modern American history. He's a daily embarrassment to himself and the White House, and I think he's cognitively impaired. So,
so we have
Joe
two
Biden,
people running who are cognitively impaired, according to your assessment.
Look, people have often said it's pretty remarkable that in a country the size of 300 million people in the US, and the Democrats couldn't come up with a more impressive candidate than Joe Biden. But I think he's the lesser of the weaker candidates. I think he's a stronger. I think he'll win. I think the evidence shows he's going to win. Now, Trump could pull it off, but God, you've got to say the odds are against him.